Oh, sure, I will. Sure.
And then I promise you, I want to get back to all the other places where we were going.
Wherever you want to go. I love talking to you. You're great, and you're very knowledgeable.
Well, I'm curious more than knowledgeable, but I certainly want to explore where you're going to take us with miniature event horizons and space-time singularities, too. But we'll just have to do that right after our discussion about why it was painful to work with the Greys with a guy who should know, Dr. Fred Bell, on Coast to Coast AM. My name's Ian Punnett. So we're talking with Dr. Fred Bell, and you can find out more, by the way, about these holographic projectors if you go to coasttocoastam.com, where you can also get more information on the After Dark newsletter with that special offer we have right now for another of, not the original one, but another of the series of interviews that Art Bell did over the years with Malachi Martin, Perfect Possession, if you sign up for the After Dark newsletter. Dr. Fred Bell, we just left off. We were talking about working with the Greys and that there are several installations around the country, mostly underground, where on a daily basis, we could even say a workaday basis, there are Greys that just are punching a clock, getting the job done with humans.
Yeah, I kind of like punching the clock. I don't know if they do that, but that's a good analogy.
Yeah. So I mean, would they socialize?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't socialize. There was a bunch of them up at Dulce, New Mexico, and Archuleta Mesa up there, and the Hickory Apaches. I did a couple of TV specials up there and on them, and I got to know the Indians quite well. And I had an encounter with them one night in one of their ships, but they were more likely to abduct people if they could get away with it. That was one of the big things the government tried to have. They got the abduction stuff got out of hand there for a while, and the implanting that was going on.
Why do they like to abduct?
Well, it has to do. It's a bigger picture. It has to do. The way they were using the technology they were using has to do with the removal of the constitutional freedoms of the average American. And they were doing that by putting implants in people and then causing them to do crazy things and then legislating away our freedoms by the terrorist acts that they committed. For example, the not schoolyard, but the shooting in 1984 in Texas by what's his name, Whitney.
The guy in the clock tower.
Yeah, the clock tower. He was
tower.
implanted. He was found to have 2 implants. It was ABC even made a movie out of it at one point. And what happens, they began legislating away the freedom of different kinds of weapons, and it just goes on and on and on. And so these implants are calculated, they're put in. I remember working with a lot of radiology labs all around the country, and they're saying, I don't know what these little objects are coming, but we're sure pulling them out of a lot of people's heads in different parts of their body. So that whole program was instituted probably in the late 70s, early 80s.
So what's in it for them?
With the Greys?
Yeah.
Sanctuary. They're coming. Their worlds, I guess, are collapsing, and they need to move out and colonize other areas. And according to the Pleiadians, they're energy scavengers anyway. And that's why when you ask, do I like to communicate with them? No, because my training with telepathy started at the University of Michigan when I was working with Stephen Eberball back in the '60s, actually late '50s, that was the beginning of that MK Ultra stuff. And I was trained into a way of communicating telepathically that was done on the basic harmony of the human aura and the resonant frequencies between two personalities, and because they're non-resonant to humans, and they have a completely different metabolic system. Their frequencies, their etheric frequencies, and the aural frequencies they emanate are very unpleasant. It's like blowing a whistle into a phone when somebody's on the other end. It hurts your ear, and so it was that was the kind of thing. So for me, it wasn't very pleasant. So I kind of shied away from them. But they were always aware of me because of what I do and what I've done over the years. So they were always kind of like pests.
What do you mean pests? Meaning?
Well, they tried to do some pretty negative things to me. They tried to kill me at one point.
How did they do that? Or better yet, how did they fail at doing that?
Well, they almost got away with it. The house I live in now in Laguna Beach, I was gone one day, and the neighbors, which are very straight people, I'm the only crazy one in this neighborhood, well, the craziest in the neighborhood, said that an object, a large disc, came down over my house in my absence. This is more than one neighbor, and dropped a bunch of what looked like tinfoil on the house. And when I came back from a 1-week trip, when I started going in the house, I was attacked by some kind of a strange virus. And all the people that were staying with me at the time we almost died from it. And so I had it first. I had to treat it, homeopathically, and then I had to treat it with some kind of strange bacterial infection set in. And I don't normally get sick, and it just about wiped me out. And a friend of mine was visiting from Hawaii. It hit him, and then I was married at the time. It hit my wife. It just got us all,
And our guest, Dr. Fred Bell, the author of many books, including the bestseller recently, Rays of Truth, Crystals of Light, former NASA scientist and a man who has been involved in so many projects that it'd be difficult to go over all of them now. Although it doesn't mention that you've ever had anything to do with sports.
Oh, I'm a figure skater. I used to be.
Get out.
No, I'm serious. I still have. I haven't had a time lately to do that, but I like ice skating. That's what I like to do.
Okay.
And I also race motorcycles and cars. I won 2 world championships in funny cars. I actually own 1 funny car now.
What years did you win championships?
65 and 66 at Lions Drag Strip, Long Beach, California. I still have the trophies.
Now, that's back in the nitro burning days.
Yeah, we ran nitro, yeah. Nitromethane.
That's back in like Shirley Cha-Cha Maldani.
I know, I met Shirley, yeah. She was just starting out. Don Perdone, the Snake.
The Snake?
Mine, yeah.
The Snake and the Mongoose?
Yeah, I know Tom. He lived over in Palos Verdes. Hayden Prophet. By the way, before we get into that, I want to tell you something. I want to give you what's called a silver power dome for your intuition thing.
Okay.
And then sometime after you've tried that out for a week or two, it's a special pyramid, not like the one you got. It's made out of titanium and precious metals. Then you can call me or email me, and I'll explain to you how it works once you find out what it does. But it will enhance your intuition tremendously.
I look forward to that, and I appreciate that. I'll take whatever tips I can get.
And one other thing, I got to get this in before I don't get shot. I want to say hi to Ariel and all the people out at Wisconsin tonight.
Of course, and Minnesota.
Okay, in Minnesota.
And all of her, it's a gaggle, and they're here, and they're all they get together regularly, and I pass it along to them too.
Oh, good.
All right, so then guidance here for people on where you want these calls to go. Any particular place?
Yeah. And we'll have Verizon to handle them, and don't give up. We get back to everybody. We get 400 or 500 calls behind. It's 1-800-729-2603. That's 1-800-729-2603. We'll get back to you. We never can handle the calls at once, but we get back to everybody, and I'll talk to a lot of people myself as the calls get weeded out, and it's necessary for me to do that. I would like to talk to everybody anyway, but I can't, obviously.
Well, let's see how many we can get. Coming up, we'll ask to keep the questions short so Dr. Fred Bell has time for the answers. You can find out more about pyridine.com by looking up to coasttocoastam.com, too, and we'll take email as well. And we'll get it all started next on Coast to Coast AM. My name's Ian Punnett. Well, I put aside my questions for now so that you can get in on Coast to Coast AM, like Claire, west of the Rockies, for Dr. Fred Bell. Claire?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to hear you expound upon the John Titor phenomena. And do you know who created this John Titor phenomena?
I'm not even familiar with it.
Okay.
John Titor phenomena?
Yeah, no.
The time traveler?
Well, no, I've done a lot in time travel. There's been so many people that have discussed it. I'm not familiar with his work. I'm familiar with the work that I've done and several other people, but I'm not familiar with his work. Is there some high point that you want to have a question answered?
Well, he came on the Internet in the early part of this century, and made contact, and he was from the future,
right?
And then and his apparatus, he explained it all, et cetera. And I didn't know if you had gotten into his apparatus and what he was doing.
No, I hadn't, but I developed something called the T1 Time Travel Transposer, which is in my book. And some of the information's over on that website, other website, blogandservice.com.
Thank you, Claire. Tell me about your time travel. It is a whole section of your book, and you actually, in a couple of different ways, you talk about time travel. Right. Is that something that that you do a lot of?
No, I don't do it a lot. Let me explain to you really quickly here. What we did is I got the idea when I was working at the University of Michigan, and when we were observing the half-life of particles. In other words, when you accelerate particles up to the speed of light, they'd collide with something, and we would get reverse time out of that. So what I did is I developed a device whereby you would go inside of it physically, and it would speed up the electron-proton relationship in every single cell in your body, taking you and your mind and your brain and all your physiological parts and your mental parts out of this giant web that we're caught in, because we're all synchronized by all our bioclocks on one level are synchronized together. So this device allows you to isolate yourself and move forward by speeding up this process.